Hey, Chair, you are now live.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the June meeting of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee for HRM. My name is Hugh Millward, and I'll be chairing the meeting. And we'll begin with the roll call so that we can check everyone's audio and video are working. So I'll move on. Douglas Wetmore, the Vice Chair, is not with us yet, but he emailed that he should be with us by 5 o'clock. Councillor Cattell, could you just introduce yourself?
Yep, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patty Cuttle, Councillor for District 11, and I sit on the Active Transit Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Annika Ropel, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hello, Annika. There you are. Holly Woodill.
Present.
Hello, hi, Holly. Milena Casanavicius.
Right here. Thank you.
Hello, Milena. Elizabeth Pugh.
Yep, I'm here. Hello.
Hi. Peter Zimmer.
Yes, present.
Oh, there you are, Peter. Hello.
Yep.
Paul Young. So Paul's not with us yet. And Miles McCormick.
Hello, Hugh. Present.
Oh, hi, Miles. We've had regrets from Andrew Taylor and Brittany McLean. And as I mentioned, Douglas Wetmore will be joining later. We have staff members with us. David McIsaac is the manager of Active Transportation.
Hello.
Hi, David. And the legislative assistant for today, filling in for Elizabeth, is Dorothy Maponga.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy. So we'll start with the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Moving on to approval of the minutes. The minutes were the draft minutes were circulated for the May 18th meeting. And firstly, did anyone note any problems with those minutes? If not, I would like a motion to approve. I need a mover and a seconder.
So
Oh, Peter and Miles, I think that was. Was it? And all those in favor of approving then as circulated, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. And anyone opposed, say nay or raise your hand. No one opposed. So those are those minutes are approved as circulated. Thank you. Next is order of business and approval of any additions or deletions. So Dorothy, are there any additions or deletions?
There have been no additions or deletions received by the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. And all right, and then we need to approve the minutes, the order of business as circulated, the agenda as circulated. We need a mover and a seconder.
I will so move, Holly.
Holly is moving, and
I'll second that.
And Councillor Cuttle,
Yep.
Seconded. Those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. No one opposed, so the order of business is approved. Moving on, business arising out of the minutes. As far as I know, there is none. That's correct, is it? I think it is. And conflict of interest in relation to the agenda items. If there are any committee members who feel they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Hearing none, we can move on to item 6, consideration of deferred business. I just want to let you know in terms of deferred business that the item that we were expecting to be on today on active school travel unfortunately had to be cancelled again, but therefore we wish to hold that on a July meeting, and there will be a motion in relation to that presentation. Item 7, correspondence. Dorothy, has there been any correspondence received through the clerk's office?
There has not been any correspondence received to the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. And petitions, I'll ask.
No petition received to the clerk's office.
Okay, and have any of the committee members received petitions? Okay, no. So now we move on to, I guess, the main item of business today, which is the presentation from Walk and Roll Halifax on the Windsor Street Exchange plans. Talan Iskan is going to be the presenter. So Talan, are you ready to present?
Yeah, I'm ready to present. Let me share my screen. Let me see. Let me turn to presentation mode. In which case, sorry, it's gonna be, well, I guess I have to do this one.
Huh. Okay, we see that, but it's not full screen.
Yep, I'll do this following. Start from the beginning. And there should be a way for
You might need to just click on slideshow
where I am, but it's
and then put it in presentation mode.
yeah, it's not supposed to have done this, but
I'm really sorry. This is Holly. I have to go. I hope to come back in 15 minutes at the most.
Okay, very good, Holly. Thank you.
Thank you. Something's broken.
just a sec.
Would you like me to share it for you? I could do that.
It's supposed to allow me to actually switch screens, which I not so sure why it's not doing it. But
so Dorothy, maybe you have this presentation, Dorothy, don't you? Oh,
just a sec. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll go to that. It's not allowing me to. I have to present.
See my screen?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Supposed to shift my. Anyway, do you see my full screen? The full presentation?
I don't see full screen right now.
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing full screen too.
I do.
Huh. Oh yeah, okay, I've got it.
Okay.
Are you ready to go then, Iskan?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Well, good
okay.
afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for including us on the agenda. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Talan Iskan. I am a board member with the Halifax Cycling Coalition. Today, I would like to present to your committee a collegial submission by Walk and Roll Halifax. It's More Than Buses and the Halifax Cycling Coalition. There is an ongoing project to redesign the Windsor Street Exchange, and today we'll make a recommendation regarding the Windsor Street Exchange. each component of this recommendation, if followed, will give Halifax a better Windsor Street Exchange. We'll explain this recommendation and why it should be accepted in its entirety. Next slide, please. Your committee is probably familiar with our advocacy organizations, but for the record, collectively, we advocate for safe, comfortable, and accessible mobility of pedestrians, transit users, and people cycling everywhere in our city. Next slide, please. We are the voices of people walking and rolling, cycling, and using public transit. Together, we represent all modes of climate-friendly mobility that contribute to a more livable and a healthier city. As advocacy organizations, we collaborate regularly on our as our needs and goals overlap considerably. In January this year, for instance, we made a strategic recommendation to the Transportation Standing Committee. We observed that the municipal infrastructure projects continue to prioritize and privilege vehicles over people walking, cycling, and using transit. We recommended to this Transportation Standing Committee that the municipality be proactive and implement formal project evaluation criteria so that infrastructure designs meet the municipality's stated priorities of modes of mobility and equity criteria. Our recommendations called for a proactive, transparent, and accountable process. And it included a recommendation that was actually successful. And it was in a follow-up meeting, the Transportation Standing Committee passed a motion to this effect and unanimously accepted our recommendations and directed staff to develop an evaluation rubric. Today, we'll make a tactical recommendation. Previous slide, please. Today, we'll make a tactical recommendation regarding the Windsor Street Exchange. The Windsor, next slide, please. The Windsor Street Exchange redesign project is still ongoing. There is time to make sure that the redesign gets things right. And we recognize that it is a critical regional mobility and transportation link in the regional center. It is important for our economy and people with diverse needs and mobility modes, including walking, biking, and transit. There's no disagreement on these issues. Next slide, please. Once completed, the redesigned Windsor Street Exchange will be with us for decades. So the design needs to get it right for all modes of mobility and all needs. So we thus recommend that the Windsor Street redesign to include separated and wide sidewalks for people walking and rolling, separated and protected bicycle lanes for people cycling, dedicated transit-only lanes for people using public transit, protected intersections that are safe for all vulnerable road users, and a design for maximum 40 kilometers per hour traffic speeds. Next slide, please. Our recommendation is consistent with the integrated mobility plan priorities. These include increased use of active transportation, increased use of transit, and decreased use of vehicles. These priorities have been accepted by the municipality. The inverted triangle that I have on the slide is an agreed upon equitable prioritization. It starts with people walking and rolling, followed by cycling, and people using transit, followed by goods movements and vehicles at the bottom of the priority list. We argue that this inverted triangle and these priorities must be adhered to in the design of the Windsor Street Exchange. Next slide, please. Our recommendation is also consistent with access, use, safety for all ages and abilities. And here, when I say all ages and abilities, I am referring to not only people cycling, but all vulnerable road users and transit users. Our recommendation is consistent with multimodal and multifunctional design of the Windsor Street Exchange. It is consistent with vibrant, connected neighborhoods and networks. These neighborhoods include Fairview, Bedford, Dartmouth, Peninsula, Halifax, and beyond. The Windsor Street Exchange redesign should not be a barrier to people moving to their desired destinations using different modes of mobility and mobility devices. Our recommendation unites and connects these neighborhoods. It is consistent with a sustainable mode of transportation. It is consistent with more livable and healthier Halifax. Once implemented, this recommendation will help Halifax achieve its stated goal of 60% of all trips being completed when conducted by sustainable modes. Next slide, please. We are particularly concerned by statements about the limited space at the Windsor Street Exchange. Priorities exist because resources are always limited. The Integrated Mobility Plan has already ranked the competing demands on space by prioritizing people walking, cycling, and using transit. The allocation of space must thus match those priorities. There is enough space and right-of-way to meet diverse needs and mobility modes. Allocation of space must manage congestion by providing real alternatives like active transportation and transit. These are solutions to, and not causes of, vehicle congestion. Allocation of space must be a consultative, collaborative, and transparent process involving our advocacy organizations, striving always for an equitable design for people walking, biking, and using transit. Next slide, please. What are the next steps? We ask that the Active Transportation Advisory Committee make a recommendation to the Transportation Standing Committee and support our collegial advocacy as follows. Next slide, please. For the Windsor Street Exchange designed to meet the needs of people of Halifax and to provide options to move through the exchange include separated and wide sidewalks for people walking and rolling, separated and protected bicycle lanes for people cycling, dedicated transit-only lanes for people using public transit, protected intersections that are safe for all vulnerable road users, designed for maximum 40 kilometers per hour traffic speeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Talon. Short but sweet. No doubt we should focus on your call for a motion to the Transport Standing Committee. Can we get the, oh, there we go. Okay. So I have a speaking list, and I'll give each member of the committee a chance to ask questions and make comments. I'll just run through the list in order, and then there'll be a chance to come back for follow-up. So I'll start with Miles McCormick. Miles, questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. And I am very interested in the protected intersection, i.e. the crosswalk. The one that I've tried to get some work done on is the ramp, the Joseph Howe ramp, where it's double up. So if you're biking, walking, there's not even a yield sign or even a crosswalk there. So I was really taken up by the protected intersection part and the effort that you and the organizations put in. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Miles.
Thank you, Miles.
Peter Zimmer.
Unmute. Okay. I guess my turn to come first. Essentially, I like it. I might argue that the maximum speed should be perhaps 30 kilometers an hour, given that at rush hours, traffic is not moving anywhere near 30 kilometers an hour. You know, I'm afraid it will be, as so many projects are, driven by the automotive sector first. The big trucks using it from the container port as part of the underlying planning strategy. So I think we have to speak very strongly to say consultant reports must deal with these different groups chapter by chapter. First, starting out explaining what their plan is going to do to benefit the pedestrians, and then what it's going to do to benefit the cyclists, and third, what it's going to do to benefit transit. And that includes explicit consideration of bus stops plus the impending or future rapid transit system. It's got to go through that place. So, it's a great start. It needs amplification and strong encouragement that the city at the highest level, when they're asking for a consultant's report, really implement the integrated mobility plan hierarchy as governing factor in how they get around to presenting it. So the top thing to present is not the solution for making cars go through fast or doubling the capacity of the way that the number of cars expected to go through there in 10 or 15 years. So I'll stop at that point.
Okay, Talon, do you have any response to that, or?
Yeah, I do. I do appreciate Peter's comments about reducing speed limits to 30 kilometers per hour. We went with 40 kilometers per hour because it is so far at least, admissible speed limit that the municipality kept put on city streets. We are, of course, much more concerned about the safety of vulnerable road users, including people walking and rolling. And if the provincial legislation allows speed limits to go down to 30 kilometers an hour, as they do around schools and at school times, which is a bit difficult to implement at times, but would be happy to go with that recommendation. But for the timing, I think we want it to be realistic and not to push the envelope too far. But I 100% agree with Peter that the priorities, as they were stated and accepted by the integrated mobility plan, they have to be implemented. This is a real opportunity for all levels of government to cooperate, and the municipality to actually showcase that they're committed to the priorities exhibited in the integrated mobility plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on then to Paul Young.
Paul, I
Fully
believe,
on.
is not in the meeting today.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Paul has not joined us.
No, he has not.
Oh, I see. Okay. Then we'll move on to Councillor Cuttle. Councillor?
Yep, thank you. Just figuring out how to unmute myself there. Yeah, no, thank you very much for the presentations. I think there's some good points in there, particularly around kind of separating out the pedestrians and the cycling from the cars. I agree with Talon that you don't want to push this envelope too far. I think suggesting 30 kilometers an hour when you're also suggesting a separation of everything might be pushing it too far. You want 30 kilometers when there's going to be, you know, in the conflict areas. But I think the emphasis on the separation is kind of where we really need to focus our efforts on this, and in making it as continuous and easy for pedestrians and cyclists to get through that area. So I appreciate the work that's being done on here, and I think there's some good summary points to feed into the Windsor Street Exchange dialogue.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Annika Ropel.
Yeah, generally in agreement with the points made, and hopefully we'll see some of that. But the separation of bikes and pedestrians in that area is absolutely necessary, and as it has been brought to our attention many times by wonderful folks like Milana, bikes and pedestrians are best kept apart. So I certainly don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you, Annika. Holly Woodall. Oh, I guess Holly said she...
No, I'm unmuted now. I'm going to reserve comment because I didn't get the presentation, but I'll go along with anybody, whatever you say.
Okay, there'll be a chance to come back anyway.
Thank you.
Milena Casanavicius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Talon. As a member of Walk and Roll myself, as a pedestrian who is blind, it has become very clear to me that HRM has forgotten the IMP, and pedestrians are being pushed somewhere towards the middle. So I, in fact, have no questions for the first time ever since being in this committee, but I'm in full agreement of everything that is here. And case in point, Upper Water Street just put down an extra portion of a bike lane, and while we had spoken to and agreed upon, they have not separated the bike lane from the pedestrians, and I don't think that bike lane is ever going to be as safe for cyclists either, due to the traffic that is traveling. So HRM needs to really focus in and do their diligence to follow IMP, which was approved and granted. Thank you. End of thought.
Thank you, Milena. So yes, and for those listening in, that the IMP is the Integrated Mobility Plan of HRM. Okay, so Elizabeth Pugh.
Hi, yeah. Hi, Talon. Nice to see you. I was going to actually just echo what Councillor Cuttle had said. I think one doesn't necessarily need the low speed limits when you have the separation, just because you're achieving your goal with a different way of doing it. It is an area of town that is needing to be moving traffic. It's not a residential neighborhood. But I also agree completely that that area needs to be improved. I walk through that intersection or that area quite frequently, and it's nasty, no question. So I applaud trying to get something done there that takes into the active transportation. But I guess without seeing numbers and designs, it's hard for me to make any further comment.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Douglas Wetmore has not joined us yet. Is that correct?
No, I'm here now, Hugh.
Okay, then did you catch the presentation, Douglas?
I did. I joined right at the end, but I was watching the live stream on my phone. Ironically enough, stuck in traffic coming through Windsor Street Exchange. So
Okay.
I've got a fresh set of eyes on the current status of it. No, I've got a few comments, no real questions. No surprise. You've got my full support for pretty much everything you've put forward here. What I really want to emphasize to the rest of the committee here is the point on future-proofing this design. Because realistically, this is a big work of construction we're going to do that's, in a perfect world, going to last us 30, 40, 50 plus years from now. So we really need to make sure we get this right. And I don't know if I missed it, but I want to highlight that Halifax Transit's ambitious BRT plan also includes a BRT line going straight through this Windsor Street Exchange. So I think it's not unrealistic to assume that, given this is a potential BRT corridor, this is going to have big eyes for residential and commercial development. So though right now it's essentially just a highway on the corner of Halifax, I think we need to be ambitious and imagine that 20, 30 years from now, this could become an extension of downtown where people want to build high rises and have residential communities popping up from what used to be essentially just a highway. So with that in mind, I think it's really important that we get this right in terms of not just the bus access, because let me tell you, coming off a absolutely cramped 90 stuck in traffic there, it was miserable. So that would be a highlight to fix, but especially just the active transportation aspect as well. We've already got a bike lane going down Windsor Street. And again, in a perfect world, one day that will be a protected bike lane corridor. So this will be an extension of that, which I anticipate will likely be highly used. If we are going to be building high rises here to support the BRT network going through there, we're going to want to make sure it's a walkable neighborhood so that people can easily walk through the Windsor Street Exchange, up Lady Hammond, into Windsor, up through the Bayers Road area. We need to make sure it's accessible by everything, including just cars. Because as I think a lot of the committee has alluded to, and as your presentation has highlighted, the worry right now is that the design is going to prioritize cars too much when I think we really need to think of the big picture. Anyways, I think that's the end of my rant. Pretty much on board with everything else the committee has said. And if we want to push something forward to Transportation Standing Committee, you will have my full support of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. I'm glad you made it and put your 2 cents worth in. I have a couple of comments and questions myself. I would like to remind everyone that this is a traffic choke point of probably just about the first order. And, in terms of commuting, the McKay Bridge and the Bedford Highway are bringing huge numbers of people into the city, and they're going on via Barrington, via Lady Hammond, via Windsor into town, vice versa in the evening. So I'm concerned that given that really important traffic function, vehicular traffic function, that although of course there should be adequate active transportation planning and provision, it really shouldn't make this a worse choke point. And that's my concern. Until we have a third harbour crossing, which is something I think inevitable in the future, this is very important. That's just a general item. In terms of the specific suggested motion, and I think that's what we're looking at here, I'm fine with that. And I would I would entertain that, in fact, someone move that wording and move and second it so that we can discuss it. I suspect if there is a mover, that we're talking about making a recommendation to the Transportation Standing Committee, but I don't know whether that would require any additional staff report. I don't think so. And maybe maybe we can have a reading on that from Dorothy. Dorothy, if we move those recommendations, is it simply a recommendation to the Transportation Standing Committee?
Thank you, Chair. I would say yes. It's a recommendation, and then they could probably then look for a staff report from there, from the Standing Committee.
Okay, let's assume that's the case then. So I'm inviting someone to move the wording that we had on that last slide, and I need a seconder as well.
Also move.
Thank you, Peter. And a seconder?
Milena will second, but Mr. Chair, could you just read that last wording for my benefit, please?
Yeah, I either that or we can flash that particular slide up on the screen and I'll read it from that. Is that possible?
That would be appreciated if that could be done.
Okay. So it's the previous one from that. Okay, up. Next one. Up. Next. Okay, that's it. Oh no, sorry, that's not it. Oh.
Last
Here
to
we
the
are,
previous slide.
Okay, so I'll read the recommendations in the presentation. We recommend Windsor Street Exchange redesign to include, and then there's a series of bullets, separated and wide sidewalks for people walking and rolling, separated and protected bicycle lanes for people cycling, dedicated transit-only lanes for people using public transit, protected intersections that are safe for all vulnerable road users, and finally, designed for 40 kilometers per hour traffic speeds. So do I have a mover for that?
I think.
Oh,
Peter,
sorry. Yeah, Peter's already moved.
Yeah.
Milena has seconded.
I will second it then. Yes. And thank you for reading that out again to me.
Okay, Milena. Maybe we can just keep that slide there for now while we discuss this. I think I'll briefly go through the speaking list again, just to see if anyone has any specific comment or suggested change to that motion. So, Miles McCormick.
No, I'm clear with the proposal.
Okay, thank you, Miles.
Yep.
Peter Zimmer, I assume you don't have a change to make since you're moving it.
I don't have a change to make. I would just note, as to record in the discussion, that this will have to get into the weeds about active planning for changes that are already underway among, in transportation, that will affect the use of this, as was so wonderfully put forward. We have to be looking 20 or 30 or 40 years down the road and thinking about what the impacts might be and what the city around it might be and what the technologies are that all the vulnerable road users might want to do, and what the change of having a really good rapid bus transit corridor there would mean in actually reducing the number of cars coming through the intersection. It's
okay, but do you have a comment specific to the motion?
No. I want it on the record of our discussion, but I'm not going to change the motion or suggest an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cuttle? Councillor?
Find my mute. Oh, I'm not on mute. Oh, there we go. Sorry. think I'm being quiet. Yeah, no further comments. I mean, just the comments around the speed, but I think this is just a recommendation, you know, a recommendation for consideration. So I'm fine with it as is.
Okay, thank you. Annika Ropel?
No further comment. I'm happy with it the way it stands.
Okay. Holly Woodall?
I would like to see this everywhere, but yes, I have no further comment.
Okay, excellent. Milena, I assume you're okay with it as it is?
Yes, sir, Captain, sir.
Elizabeth Pugh?
Sorry, I'm going to be the dissenter here. I'd like to see the word include be changed to consider. I don't think we have nearly enough information to be asking for it to include these things, especially given that I believe this is a vehicle-centric type of place. And again, not saying that the AT shouldn't be considered. This is a hub for the port. It's where a highway connects to the peninsula. Ideally, this highway should really be connecting through to 102, which is more highway in that area, not less. There's a graveyard. There's a train thing. So I think trying to make this into the type of thing we might put on Spring Garden is not appropriate for the area. So much as I'd like to see it included, I just don't think we should be demanding that. That's all I'm, I guess, getting at.
Okay, so you wish to change include in the first sentence to what was it?
Consider.
To consider.
Just, yeah.
All right. And does anyone have a problem with that?
I would rather it included it myself.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll come to, I mean, if Elizabeth wants to propose an amendment to the motion, you could do that, Elizabeth, and we'd vote on that.
Yes. I would speak as the mover that I would be opposed to changing it. It would be an unfriendly amendment as far as I'm concerned. We are recommending, hey, I mean, that's enough fiddle room for generations of planners to work their way around. I think. Yeah.
Understood. So Elizabeth, do you want to press on with?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make my point. And I think just to save some time later, when we come to vote on this, I think I'm going to abstain, if that's okay. Just partly, again, because of my sort of position from the province on this one. So just you can make a note of that now, and then you don't need to come back. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And where were we? Douglas Wetmore. Douglas?
No comments in relation to the motion.
Okay.
Definitely more comments elsewhere, but I'll save those.
Okay. I actually have a problem with the first bullet point, separated and wide sidewalks for people walking and rolling. My understanding is there shouldn't be any rolling on sidewalks. I believe it's illegal. So I don't think that should be in there.
Okay. The question of rolling, baby carriages, disability scooters, you know, they roll.
I can see. Well, scooters aren't allowed on sidewalks.
I believe this is the
mobility scooters are like anything that somebody is using as a mobility aid, such as a wheelchair or an electric.
Okay.
That I think that's my reading. When we at HRM talk about rolling on sidewalks, it's almost it's the carriages being pushed, and it's folks with disabilities who use devices that have wheels on them.
Okay, thank you, David. I guess I'm still concerned, though, that people who don't have that specific read on it might assume that you're allowed to have e-scooters, for example, and such like on the sidewalk, and that's illegal. So I don't know. Maybe you could just change that to legal rolling, but
I think you could change it to just separated wide sidewalks. Period.
Yes, That would
And then
work.
same with the next bullet. Don't say people cycling because there's going to be scooters in there too. It's separated and protected bicycle lanes, period.
I would support that change. I think that makes sense.
All right, so.
Okay, I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, thank you, Peter. All right, so it looks like we're okay with that. In which case, I think everyone's had their say. We can move to, we can go to the question. I'll call the question. Those in support, in favor of the motion as amended, please say aye or raise your hands.
Sorry, Chair,
Aye.
could we get a mover and a seconder for the amendment?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Could we get a mover and a seconder for the amendment?
Oh, for the amendment. Okay, well, I guess I'm moving the amendment then. Or no, actually, who suggested just deleting for people walking and rolling? Who was that? Was that
It was
Holly?
ironically, it was Elizabeth.
Okay. So Elizabeth moved that, and was it Holly that?
I'll second it, yes.
Okay, thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
So
I don't.
okay, so now I guess to be
Yeah.
formally correct, we have
Hugh,
to act.
I have a question, which is if it is accepted by the amender, by the
As a friendly amendment, yeah.
if it's accepted as a friendly amendment by the mover and the seconder, I don't believe it needs a vote.
Agree.
Yes, that makes sense to me. I don't think we need a vote on that.
No.
You've accepted it as a friendly amendment.
And I guess it would be then up to Milena. If she accepts it as a friendly amendment, then it's good.
Do you accept that, Milena? Hello, Milena? I don't hear.
Okay.
Are you there, Milena?
I'm here. I was just having some difficulty unmuting. I do accept that. Yes, that will work. And just a quick I think because it was this combined effort under More Than Buses from Cycling Coalition and Walk and Roll, and under the definition of walk and roll, we specifically pertain to wheelchair users and mobility aids that roll and strollers and not e-scooters or unfortunately cyclists. So because we are pedestrians. So but I accept. I'm happy. It's all good. Thumbs up. Thank you. End of thought.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so now I guess we were in the middle of voting for the main motion, were we?
Yes.
Let's just do that again. Those in favor of the motion as amended, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay or raise your hand.
Oops.
Hearing none, the motion as amended is accepted, and that will be a recommendation going from our committee to the Transportation Standing Committee. Okay, hopefully everyone's okay with that, and we can move on to item 8, information items brought forward. There are none. Item 9 is the staff update, and I'll invite David McIsaac to provide us with an update from staff.
Sure. Can you hear me okay, Hugh?
Yes, we can.
Just a few things to mention to the group tonight. First of all, the Active Transportation Planning Group, that's the group that I manage, is in a rebuilding phase right now. So we have one person started last week, another person starts on Monday, and we have another person starting the following Monday. So, and then we still have one more position to fill after that, but overall, we're climbing out of our deficit of people here and can hopefully relaunch some of the projects that we had on the go. And you will meet them all, I'm sure, many times at future meetings. So I'll introduce them. Maybe we'll invite them all to the next meeting just so that they can get to meet you and get a bit of a sense of how this committee works. Second thing is we have a report that Harbor East Marine Drive Community Council this evening. That is for the East Preston area rate. So this is our first rural community that we are looking to add sidewalk or multi-use pathway in. And in order for rural communities to be eligible for that, they have to pay a new tax rate that's equivalent to the urban tax rate. And so we did our engagement in East Preston in March and April, and generally heard back from the community that they thought that it was acceptable to increase their taxes a bit in order to get some active transportation infrastructure. So this is our first time kind of through this process. So we'll see what we hear tonight at Harbor East Marine Drive Community Council. And then our plan is to go to other candidate rural communities, hopefully in the fall. And we'll do a group of them at that point. East Preston is kind of off on its own because we have some cost share funding that we need to spend. So if that goes ahead tonight, and if council approves it at a subsequent meeting, then we will be hopefully have shovels in the ground in East Preston by September. So there's news on, I know a subject this committee's talked about is shared micromobility or e-scooters. So I'll let you know if it happens at next Tuesday's regional council. There could be a report there that asks council if they want to make them legal. If council does want to make them legal, we will give them some rules of the road to support, and we'll also ask them if they want to have a regulated shared micromobility arrangement or system in the city. So if that doesn't get to council next Tuesday, it would probably go on July the 11th. Regardless, I'll send a message to everybody on this committee with an update on that and with a link to the report so that you have that. And I guess the only other sort of, right now there's a lot of our capital projects that are in the final stages of design or that have gone out to tender, and our group is really at this stage of the game just sort of providing input and advice on those projects. But there's a lot of activity happening right now to get those projects out the door. And that is my update. Happy to answer any questions or anything else that the committee is interested in.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Let's just briefly go through the speaking list again in case people have comments or questions. Miles McCormick.
No questions.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Councillor Cuttle.
Yep, thank you. Dave, I'm just wondering, sorry, you might have said it, but when are we going to have a schedule of those community meetings around the rural sidewalk project?
We would know more toward the end of the summer in terms of exactly how we're going to approach it, and so kind of the process is that we have the program approved and the administrative order approved, and in that approval from council, we kind of set criteria for how we would prioritize community clusters. And so we identified, I think, 14 or 16 kind of candidate communities, sort of, Middle Musquodoboit, Hubbards, Musquodoboit Harbor, Portage Lake, those kind of places, yeah. And so we will kind of rank them and hopefully come up with a list of 5 or 6, and then we would kind of go out to those communities. And first of all, kind of like introduce the notion of, HRM has this program. Are you interested in a new sidewalk in your community? Are you willing to pay an area rate? And do our best to kind of get the word out in the community and get feedback. And then we would go back to council and ask them to endorse us prioritizing those 5 communities. And then those would be the ones that we really focus on in the next number of years to get those sidewalks in.
Okay, so okay, thank you for that explanation. I was just really looking at when we would see the schedule of public engagement sessions, so later in the summer.
Yeah, it'd be like at least 2 or 3
That's
months.
Okay.
And there'll be lots of information going to council and all that kind of stuff to kind of help get the word out.
Thank you.
Okay. Annika Ropel.
Yeah, I guess I just had a question, and I don't know anything about this, but I know, from what I've understood, some cities have specific relationships with e-scooter companies, like that they are like sanctioned or licensed or have some kind of agreement. Is that something that is being talked about, or I don't know? That's not really a question, but
yeah. So that that is what staff will be telling the council is if you want shared micromobility, so that's bike share and e-scooter share. There's different ways to get there, and really the kind of 2 main options is that the municipality kind of owns the system and either operates it themselves or contracts out the operation, or the municipality issues permits to private companies for them to operate. And those are kind of the 2 models. That latter model is what's mostly or almost entirely used for e-scooter share in Canada. So that's the idea, is we want to go from kind of the free-for-all that exists right now to something that's more regulated, has some more enforcement teeth, and gives the municipality, and if it's a licensing system, some of the revenue would also come into the municipality through fees and that kind of thing. So it's a way for us to recoup some of our costs.
great. Really looking forward to that. Yeah, and I know that Bird had mentioned, I'm sure some of the other companies also have e-bikes, so it would be really cool to see a bike share something existing here.
Yeah, and really, I think what we have direction at in the municipality and where we see like a really big benefit is in the bike share. That's we're quite interested in that. So I think if we do look to permit companies to come in, we would absolutely have to have companies that are going to offer both. And e-bikes for sure. That's definitely something we're looking for.
Okay, thank you, Annika. And Holly Woodhill.
I don't have any additional comments.
Okay, Holly.
Thank you.
Okay, Milena.
Just one quick comment, David. Thanks for that report. I won't comment on the e-bike and e-scooters. I'm all for e-bikes, and everybody here knows how I feel about e-scooters, and I wish they weren't really being wrapped up together into one. I hope that doesn't happen. I will ask that congratulations on getting new staff for you. And so something that happened a couple of weeks ago with the new staff, if you could, from your end, try to perhaps educate that anything happening in cycling infrastructure that your team is consulting, as they have been doing, because the new members I don't think are aware that consultations need to happen before anything moves forward. So that's just a request from me on my end to you, and everything else is thanks for report and dealing with all the files that come in. So thank you. End of that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Milena. Elizabeth Pugh.
No, thanks as always, David. 2 really interesting things that I can't wait to see how they turn out.
Okay, and Peter Zimmer.
Yes, thanks, David. I've been following this whole micro-mobility development and e-bike sharing, and I come from a car sharing background. I think there needs to be, if it's if it's licensed and even if it's city operated, that any such system has to address social equity. Some of the problems I've heard about elsewhere in Canada is that the bike share or the scooter share or the mixed kind of share comes in, and then a couple of years later they say, oh, well, we're not making enough profit. And they leave out large neighborhoods because their profit drive says, do it where there are the more well-to-do people who will sign up and use it and put money in our pockets. So some cities have gone and said, well, this should be part of our transit system. You know, it's not something that's separate, because the e-bikes and the e-scooters then at the end of express bus routes provide the mobility for people to get the last couple of kilometers to where they want to go. From an express bus dumps people downtown, but they're going to Dalhousie or Smoo, and an e-scooter or an e-bike is a great way to get there. And there are parts of the city where I'm afraid the pure commercial take on it will say, it's not worth our while. And I don't know whether we're talking Spryfield or whatever other parts of the city, but there will be parts of the city that they'll say, not very likely. And I think that's a real concern that we should be aware of and address, and the city should be very careful about that. Just one last note, I read an interesting little piece out of Street Blog that's saying a number of cities that had banned e-scooters are now unbanning them, because it turns out that, in some cases the ban was influenced by somebody who had a particular animus or by a stray shooting, And so all of a sudden cities are looking and saying, hey, this is proven in many cities now to be a real benefit to the adoption of a car-freer downtown core or other parts of the city that operate more freely. So I think it is a large commitment, and it's complex, and I think it probably should be back and forth between us and other NGOs and other interest groups a couple of times to be very clear, about equity, about the rules, that they're enforceable, and about not leaving us stranded when the commercial supplier says, oh, screw, our return on our investment is too low. And sorry, Halifax, goodbye. Because that has happened elsewhere in Canada and in many parts of the world.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I don't know if you have a response to that, David?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So one thing I didn't mention is that probably what we're going to propose is that if council wants to do this, we would do it as a 2-year pilot project. So the intent is to kind of try it and see what we get out of it. So there will be opportunities for adjustment. There might be opportunities if it's not working to make it go away after a year, or after a year or two, see if we're meeting our objectives and adjust our approach accordingly. So, part of our objectives, Peter, will include looking at licensing providers who take social equity into consideration when they, as part of their operations. And the way that will play out is that we've already identified particular neighborhoods that are equity-seeking neighborhoods or something like that. So we'll be looking for companies that will be setting up in those locations. The other thing that kind of gets played out that's important is how you pay for them. So if you don't have a credit card, are there other ways that you can get access to them? We are also sort of looking at, are there ways to kind of connect with Halifax Transit's, I think it's called the X Pass. Anyway, they've got a particular pass that's priced and and directed at people on social assistance. And then the other thing that I'm thinking of that we have in there is also, devices or some availability of devices for people who can't use an e-scooter or a bike now. So different kinds of adapted bikes. And I don't know quite how that will play out. I mean, for example, the city of Hamilton, sorry, they've got a municipally owned bike share system, and they kind of have a sideline of also loaning out adaptive bikes. So the way that it could play out with us is that, again, pending council approval, that we would issue a request for proposals for companies that, that would receive a permit. And we would kind of look to select those companies, the companies that offer the best conformity to our objectives. And one of our objectives, I think, is very much along the lines of what you're suggesting.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
on our
David.
mind. We'll see if we can do it.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
Keep us in the circuit.
You bet.
Okay, Douglas Wetmore, any comments?
No other comments from me that haven't already been said. Thank you, David.
Okay, and for myself, I think I also don't have comments. It certainly will be interesting to see how this plays out, and whether the concerns of this committee are taken into account. So thank you, David. There are no added items for today. The date of the next meeting is July 20th. We will have a July meeting. I know it won't be very popular, but it is important, I believe, that we have the presentation from Active School Travel, from Natalia Diaz-Ensense, and there is a motion that I believe Councillor Cattell will be bringing forward relating to Active School Travel, and I believe if that motion passes at this committee, it would go straight to Transportation Standing Committee. That's my understanding. So I would encourage you all to attend the July meeting, please. And until then, I would like a motion to adjourn.
I can do that if you'd like. It's Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And we don't require a second or a vote on that. So I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And
Thank you.
hopefully I'll see you in July. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Could you